What does it mean to be God's servant? In Psalm 143, David prays to God as God's servant. David also refers to his enemy, who is a representative of all the foes who have come against him. So David is one of the characters in this psalm. The Lord, that is, his God, is another character, and his enemy or his enemies are uh, other characters spoken of in this psalm. Hopefully, this schematic that I have developed a little over 12 years ago will help point out some of the concepts that are expressed in this psalm, including but not limited David's prayers, his cries out to God for deliverance, and how David's spirit has fallen, or as he says, has failed. And out of that demise, he is asking God to rescue him. And so in this picture, I've tried to point out some of the ideas that I just mentioned in my earlier picture. I point out the Lord here in a couple of instances. I point out how David's spirit and the struggles associated with the spirit is expressed in the psalm. One concept that I have not mentioned is this idea of the ground, or should I say, the pit. You can see this expressed in the highlighted areas here in yellow and in the green font. And another struggle that, or rather identification, I should say, in this psalm is the Lord's character himself. And so all of these different concepts are interacting in this psalm. And once again, I point out how the psalms are so rich, and in the big picture of scripture, how they anticipate and look forward to the Messiah himself. Even this idea of David being his servant, and is the servant of God, comes through. And we see this spoken of as in the passage over here on the right-hand side, Matthew chapter 12. And I encourage you to go to a larger context of this passage, because you can see, as you look at that context, the more significant truths about Jesus being God's servant is expressed in that psalm. And also how in Luke chapter 1, the same idea comes through. And so in this reflection, hopefully you can see that there are very rich expressions that David is praying to the Lord as his servant, and how this psalm, if you look at it prayerfully and hopefully ponder its significance, you can see how, in a sense, if not even more directly, this is expressing the voice of Jesus Christ himself, particularly as he faced increased opposition towards the end of his ministry, opposition that was building throughout his entire life and would culminate in the cross. And even as shown there in Matthew chapter 12, as the religious leaders came against him and plotted to kill him, he faced this increased opposition. But previous to that, John the Baptizer's father, as expressed there in Luke chapter 1, noticed how Jesus Christ, the servant of God, would be the one who would bring salvation to his people. I end this reflection by pointing to Philippians chapter 2, where Paul says that Jesus, in the very nature as God, made himself nothing but took on the very nature of a servant. And he refers to that idea as a model for us as believers in Jesus Christ to follow ourselves, that we also should be servants. Not that we can fulfill the same kind of role that Jesus Christ himself did, because only he could fulfill the role of such service in his ministry, teachings, service, healings, all leading to the death on the cross that he willingly gave in order to save those who would put their faith in him. Again, what is a servant? What does it mean that Jesus Christ was God's servant? What does it mean for us that we also should be servants of the one and only true God?